One morning, you stand in front of the mirror. Your clothes feel tighter, your face looks puffier, and your energy seems to have leaked out overnight. Your doctor has whispered words like metabolic syndrome, prediabetes, and fatty liver. You have tried to eat healthy, yet your body does not seem to listen. Today, we will gently ask a daring question. What if some of the very foods you trust are quietly working against you? Perhaps you switch to whole grain bread, big salads, and generous bowls of beans. You avoided obvious sugar, yet your blood tests still creep in the wrong direction. It feels unjust, almost like your body is breaking its promise to you. In the plant paradox, Dr. Gundry suggests another possibility, that some plants carry defense chemicals, which may irritate your gut, confuse your immune system, and quietly feed the fire of metabolic syndrome. Plants cannot run away, so they protect themselves with chemistry. Imagine a rose that grows thorns you cannot see, molecules designed to discourage insects and animals from eating their seeds and leaves. One group of these invisible thorns is called lectins. In small amounts, some people tolerate them, but in others, especially with a fragile gut and metabolic syndrome, these lectins may become sparks that ignite inflammation, weight gain, and fatigue. Metabolic syndrome is like a slow fire in your body. High blood sugar, an expanding waistline, abnormal lipids, and rising blood pressure. It does not roar like a sudden illness, but smolders day after day, quietly damaging blood vessels and organs. Scientists link this process to chronic, low-grade inflammation. The plant paradox invites us to ask, could lectin-rich foods be another log on that already dangerous fire? You have been told, again and again, eat more plants. That advice is not entirely wrong. Yet, the plant paradox adds a twist. Not all plants treat everybody kindly, especially for those with metabolic syndrome. Certain seeds, grains, and nightshades may be pushing silent buttons of inflammation. Stay with us, because in the coming scenes we will identify these foods, explore the science, and imagine how your life might feel with that internal fire finally cooling down. Lectins are proteins that can bind to carbohydrates like tiny pieces of biological Velcro. They are found in many plant foods, especially seeds, grains, beans, and some vegetables. In the lab, lectins can stick to cells, red blood cells, and even the gut lining. In sensitive people, this stickiness may trigger immune reactions, disturb the gut barrier, and confuse blood sugar signals, factors deeply linked to metabolic syndrome. But remember, reactions differ widely between individuals. Imagine your gut lining as the guarded walls of a peaceful city. Nutrients are welcomed in through carefully controlled gates while toxins and invaders are kept out. The plant paradox proposes that in some people, lectins can act like clever spies, irritating the guards and poking holes in the wall. This condition, sometimes called increased intestinal permeability, may allow unwanted particles to slip into the bloodstream, feeding systemic inflammation. When these gut walls weaken, immune cells beyond the barrier become alarmed. They release inflammatory messengers, like tiny distress flares. Over time, this chronic alarm can make insulin less effective, disturb cholesterol handling, and encourage fat storage around the waist. Many scientists now see gut health as a central hub for metabolic health. The plant paradox places lectins among the possible triggers that may weaken this fragile hub in susceptible people. Where do lectins hide? According to the plant paradox, they concentrate in the parts of plants designed to protect future generations, the seeds and skins. This includes many grains, such as wheat, barley, and oats, beans and lentils, peanuts and cashews, and the skins and seeds of nightshades like tomatoes, peppers, and eggplants. This does not mean these foods are poison to everyone. Rather, for some with metabolic syndrome, they may be quiet amplifiers of trouble. If lectins are stressing your system, the messages may appear as everyday complaints: bloating after meals, stubborn weight around the middle, afternoon crashes, joint stiffness, or skin changes. For someone with metabolic syndrome, these symptoms blend into a familiar background of discomfort. The plant paradox invites you to wonder, are these just signs of aging, or is your body quietly sending you an SOS, asking for a different kind of fuel. Imagine Ms. K, 52 years old. She walks every evening, avoids sweets, and fills her plate with whole grain pasta, lentil soups, and tomato-rich salads. Yet, her waistline inches wider, her blood pressure creeps up, and her lab results show rising triglycerides. She feels betrayed. When she learns about lectins, she wonders if her efforts have been like plugging one leak while another pipe bursts behind the wall. Could a shift in plants finally change her story? It is important to be honest. Not every scientist or doctor agrees with the lectin hypothesis. Many cultures thrive on beans and grains, especially when they are traditionally prepared. Some research even shows benefits. The plant paradox presents a focused view for people who remain sick despite standard advice. Think of it as a lens, not the final word. Any major dietary change, especially if you have metabolic syndrome or take medications, should be discussed with your physician. Long before laboratories, traditional cooks discovered ways to tame plant defenses. They soaked, fermented, sprouted, and pressure cooked. These methods can reduce lectin content and make foods easier to digest. The plant paradox suggests that when we abandon these slow arts and rush into ultra-processed, quickly cooked meals, we remove the safety locks nature built into our recipes. Perhaps the old methods still hold healing wisdom for our modern metabolic struggles. Among the tools highlighted in the plant paradox, the pressure cooker stands out. High pressure and temperature can significantly reduce lectins in many beans and lentils. Picture lectins as spiky dragons on the surface of each bean. Under pressure, those spikes soften and break, becoming less able to irritate your gut. For someone with metabolic syndrome who loves legumes, this simple change in cooking method may open the door to enjoying them more comfortably. The plant paradox also suggests peeling and de-seeding certain vegetables, especially tomatoes, cucumbers, and peppers. Remember, plants often pack lectins into these parts. By gently removing skins and seeds, you can enjoy the flavor while lowering potential irritants. Think of it as performing a kind, precise surgery on your meals, keeping what nourishes, trimming what might inflame. Small kitchen rituals like this can become daily acts of self-protection. Grains sit at the center of many diets, especially wheat, barley, and oats. The plant paradox points out that modern wheat, rich in certain lectins and gluten, may be particularly troublesome for some metabolic syndrome patients. Instead of declaring war on all grains, it suggests viewing them as occasional guests, not daily rulers of your plate. Some people may experiment with grain-free periods under medical guidance to observe changes in energy, weight, and lab markers. Metabolic syndrome often feels like riding a blood sugar roller coaster. Big spikes after meals, sudden crashes, cravings roaring back. Lectin-rich, high-carbohydrate foods can accelerate this ride. When these foods digest quickly, glucose surges into the bloodstream, forcing insulin to shout loudly. Over years, your cells may become less responsive to that shout, insulin resistance. The plant paradox suggests that by reducing lectins and refined carbs, you may slow the roller coaster to a gentle train ride. Insulin is like a polite messenger knocking on your cell's doors, asking them to take in sugar from the blood. In insulin resistance, those doors become stubborn. The messenger knocks harder and more often, but the response is weak. According to the plant paradox, chronic inflammation from gut irritation, including from lectins in some people, may help lock those doors. Reducing dietary triggers could, over time, help the locks loosen alongside medical care and lifestyle changes. Deep in your gut lies a vast garden of microbes, bacteria, fungi, and other tiny beings. When nourished well, they help digest food, produce vitamins, and even influence mood and metabolism. The plant paradox suggests that certain lectins may act like weed killer to helpful species, while feeding less friendly ones. For a person with metabolic syndrome, protecting this inner garden by choosing gut-friendly plants and healthy fats may be as essential as any medication. So, what can you eat more freely? The plant paradox highlights many low lectin foods. Leafy greens like lettuce and spinach, cruciferous vegetables such as broccoli and cauliflower, asparagus, onions, garlic, and herbs, avocado, olives, and certain nuts like macadamias and pistachios join the list. These foods tend to be gentle on the gut, rich in fiber and antioxidants, and supportive of better blood sugar balance, valuable allies for someone managing metabolic syndrome. For years, people with metabolic issues were told to fear fats. But modern research, echoed in the plant paradox, distinguishes harmful trans fats and excess refined oils from beneficial fats like those in olive oil, avocado, nuts, and wild fish. These healthy fats help you feel satisfied, slow the absorption of sugars, and may reduce inflammation. Imagine them as calm, steady logs that burn cleanly, instead of sugary kindling that flares hot and then dies. Protein is your body's repair material, rebuilding muscles, enzymes, and hormones. Yet, too much protein from processed meats may worsen insulin resistance and inflammation. The plant paradox leans toward moderate portions of cleaner proteins, wild fish, pastured eggs, and, where available, grass-fed meats. For metabolic syndrome, the aim is balance, enough protein to maintain muscle and satiety without overloading the system. Choosing quality over quantity becomes a daily act of respect for your body. Imagine beginning your day not with cereal and toast, but with a plate of sautéed greens, avocado, and eggs cooked in olive oil. The plant paradox encourages breakfasts that are low in lectins and refined carbohydrates and rich in fiber and good fats. For someone with metabolic syndrome, this might feel unfamiliar at first, but as blood sugar steadies and morning brain fog lifts, breakfast transforms from a sugar spark to a foundation for the day's stability. At midday, you can either fuel the fire or build your shield. A typical lectin-heavy lunch might include sandwiches on wheat bread, chips, and sweetened drinks. In contrast, a plant paradox-style lunch centers on leafy salads, cruciferous veggies, olives, and a clean protein dressed in generous olive oil. For metabolic syndrome, such a plate works like armor, slowing glucose absorption, feeding friendly gut bacteria, and keeping afternoon energy steadier and calmer. Evening is when your body longs to repair and reset. Heavy, starchy dinners may overload an already tired system, especially in metabolic syndrome. The plant paradox suggests dinners based on vegetables, good fats, and moderate protein, such as roasted broccoli, garlic sautéed greens, and baked fish or tofu. By keeping lectins lower and avoiding late-night sugar, you allow your insulin levels to fall and your cells to enter a more healing, restorative mode during sleep. Constant snacking keeps insulin whispering and sometimes shouting all day long. The plant paradox encourages breaking this cycle. If you truly need a snack, it suggests options like a handful of macadamia nuts, some olives, or sliced cucumber without seeds. For metabolic syndrome, fewer, more intentional eating windows give your body time to lower insulin, burn stored energy, and let the gut rest. It is less about starving and more about finally allowing silence between meals. The plant paradox also discusses intermittent fasting, planned periods without food, to give your digestive system a break. For someone with metabolic syndrome, gentle approaches such as a 12 to 14 hour overnight fast may help improve insulin sensitivity and weight management. However, fasting is not safe or suitable for everyone, especially if you take blood sugar medications. Always discuss any fasting plan with your physician and begin slowly, honoring your body's signals. Sugar fuels metabolic syndrome like gasoline on a fire. The plant paradox emphasizes removing obvious sugars, sodas, sweets, fruit juices, and being cautious with high sugar fruits. But this does not have to be an angry breakup. You can shift toward natural sweetness from small portions of low sugar fruits like berries and the deeper satisfaction of savory, rich flavors. Over weeks, taste buds awaken. Foods once boring become miraculously sweet. We think of fruit as purely innocent, yet it is nature's candy. The plant paradox recommends choosing low sugar, in-season fruits, and avoiding constant year-round sweet fruit consumption, especially in metabolic syndrome. In nature, sweet fruit signaled a brief time to store fat before scarcity. Our modern, endless fruit availability can keep that fat storage switch on. Enjoying modest portions, ideally after meals, can let you savor fruit without constantly feeding the metabolic fire. Dairy is complicated. Some people digest it well, others react with congestion, skin issues, or digestive distress. The plant paradox particularly questions certain proteins in conventional cow's milk. For metabolic syndrome, Heavy intake of sweetened yogurts and ice creams can worsen blood sugar and insulin resistance. The book leans toward limited, carefully chosen dairy, often from specific animal breeds or fermented forms, and encourages you to listen closely to your own body's responses. Not all oils are equal. The plant paradox cautions against large amounts of refined seed oils like soybean, corn, and sunflower oils often used in processed foods. These can contain unstable fats that easily oxidize, potentially adding to inflammation. Instead, it praises extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, and some nut oils. For metabolic syndrome, swapping out processed foods fried in cheap oils for meals cooked in stable, high-quality fats may lighten your inflammatory load. Changing how you eat is not just a physical task, it is emotional. Foods carry memories of family, comfort, and culture. When the plant paradox suggests limiting breads, beans, or beloved vegetables, it can feel like losing old friends. If you live with metabolic syndrome, you may already feel judged or blamed. Let each change be an act of self-kindness, not punishment. You are not giving up joy. You are slowly reclaiming a body that can feel safe again. The Plant Paradox program can seem overwhelming if you try to change everything overnight. Instead, imagine your next meal as a small laboratory. Could you swap wheat bread for a leafy salad, beans for extra broccoli, a sugary dessert for some berries? People with metabolic syndrome often do best with gradual, steady changes. Each plate becomes a quiet vote for your future self. One bite less inflamed, one step closer to steadier blood sugar. As you experiment with lower lectin meals, begin to notice your body's whispers. How do you feel 2 hours after eating? Is your stomach calmer? Are afternoon energy crashes less severe? Does joint stiffness slightly ease? The plant paradox encourages this gentle self-observing. In metabolic syndrome, numbers like blood pressure and A1C matter, but so does lived experience. Keep a simple journal and always share significant changes or symptoms with your healthcare team. Some viewers may worry, will my doctor approve of this? The plant paradox is not a replacement for medical care. It is a framework you can discuss with your physician. For metabolic syndrome, medications like blood pressure drugs, cholesterol-lowering agents, or glucose-lowering therapies may be vital. Any major dietary change can affect how these work. Approach your doctor as a teammate. Bring your questions, your food log, and your hopes. Healing is strongest when you do not walk alone. Metabolic syndrome is often defined by numbers: waist circumference, blood pressure, fasting glucose, triglycerides, HDL cholesterol. As you shift your eating pattern with your doctor's guidance, these numbers can become important feedback rather than scary verdicts. The plant paradox shares stories of people whose markers improved alongside dietary changes. Everyone is different, but watching your numbers move, even slightly, in the right direction can be a powerful form of encouragement. Diet is only one part of healing metabolic syndrome. The plant paradox also respects movement as medicine. Regular walking, gentle strength training, or any enjoyable physical activity helps muscles become more sensitive to insulin and burns stored energy. Imagine your muscles as thirsty sponges. When you move, they soak up glucose more willingly. Before starting any new exercise routine, especially if you have heart or joint issues, consult your physician for safe guidance. Poor sleep is like turning up the volume on metabolic syndrome. It increases hunger hormones, worsens insulin resistance, and heightens cravings. The plant paradox encourages honoring your sleep as much as your meals. Create a quiet, dark room. Avoid heavy, late dinners, and turn off stimulating screens before bed. For many with metabolic syndrome, improving sleep quality becomes the invisible foundation upon which dietary and exercise changes can finally succeed. Chronic stress keeps your body trapped in fight or flight mode, raising cortisol, increasing blood sugar, and signaling fat to gather around the abdomen. The plant paradox acknowledges that even a perfect plate cannot fully heal a constantly stressed system. Incorporating simple practices, deep breathing, gentle stretching, brief walks in nature can help calm the stress response. In metabolic syndrome, soothing the nervous system is not a luxury. It is part of metabolic medicine. Changing your diet in a household that still loves bread, pasta, and sweets can feel lonely. The Plant Paradox community stories show that support makes change easier. Maybe you start with one family meal a week that follows these principles. Maybe you find an online group of people managing metabolic syndrome through diet and lifestyle. When others share recipes, setbacks, and small victories, your journey becomes less about isolation and more about shared possibility. Mr. J, 48, used to feel stuffed yet unsatisfied after meals, bloated belly, intense cravings, and energy crashes. When he cautiously applied the plant paradox principles with his doctor's support, replacing lectin, heavy staples with leafy greens, good fats, and pressure-cooked legumes, he noticed a different kind of fullness. His stomach felt lighter, hunger grew quieter, and he could walk in the evening without gasping for breath. His lab numbers did not change overnight, but his hope did. Ms. L, 60, lived with metabolic syndrome and persistent knee and finger pain. She assumed it was just age. After several months of lower lectin eating, fewer grains and nightshades, more leafy greens and olive oil, she reported that her rings fit more easily and stairs felt less like climbing a mountain. This is not a guarantee. Everyone responds differently, but it shows how interconnected our joints, gut, and metabolism can be when we change what we put on our plate. You might be thinking cutting out so many foods, is this too extreme? For some, perhaps it is. The plant paradox is more like a therapeutic experiment than a permanent rulebook. People with metabolic syndrome, who have tried many conventional suggestions without relief, may choose a period of stricter adherence, then slowly reintroduce foods while monitoring symptoms in labs. With your physician's guidance, you can adjust the plan to the level that feels realistic and safe. After a period on the core plant paradox plan, some people carefully test individual foods back into their diet, perhaps certain beans, peeled nightshades, or limited grains. They watch for changes in digestion, energy, joint comfort, and blood sugar. This reintroduction phase turns you into a gentle scientist of your own body. For metabolic syndrome, such experiments should be deliberate and monitored, ideally with input from your healthcare provider, rather than random swings between extremes. Pause a moment and imagine your life 5 years from now if nothing changes. The same foods, the same lab results, possibly more medications, maybe new complications. This is not to frighten you, but to honor the reality of metabolic syndrome as a progressive condition. The plant paradox offers one possible path of change. The deeper question is, what is the cost of staying exactly where you are, and what might be possible if you take even one step differently? Now imagine a different morning. You wake before the alarm, not buzzing with artificial energy, but quietly clear. Your joints feel less tight. Your waistband does not dig in as sharply. Breakfast is simple yet satisfying, and your blood sugar meter gives a calmer reading. This is the vision the plant paradox holds for many with metabolic syndrome. Not perfection, but a noticeable easing of the invisible weight you have carried for years. Your body is not a textbook example. Genetics, history, medications, and emotional stress make your metabolic story unique. The plant paradox is a tool, not a verdict. Some elements may suit you, others may not. As you experiment, your most important tasks are to respect your body's feedback, maintain open communication with your medical team, and refuse to compare your journey harshly to anyone else's. Healing is not linear. It is a personal unfolding. If you feel drawn to explore the plant paradox approach for metabolic syndrome, consider 3 gentle first steps. 1. Remove obvious sugars and sugary drinks. 2. Replace wheat-based staples with extra vegetables and healthy fats. 3. Try pressure cooking beans and peeling and de-seeding nightshade vegetables. Simple, measurable actions taken with your physician's awareness can let you test the waters without diving into overwhelm. Tonight, before bed, you might ask yourself a quiet question. What is one change I am willing to try for my own sake? Not to impress anyone, not out of fear, but as an act of care toward the body that has carried you through so much. For those living with metabolic syndrome, self-blame is heavy. The plant paradox invites you to replace blame with curiosity and punishment with gentle, consistent experimentation. You have walked with us through the world of the plant paradox and its message for metabolic syndrome that some plants may harm, others heal, and your choices matter deeply. Remember, any major change in diet or lifestyle should be discussed with your physician, especially if you take medications. If this journey has given you new questions or hope, please subscribe, like this video, and share it with someone who may need it. Then, choose one small step today and begin.